you, Dr. Ambush, for the generous invitation to be with you today. And thank all of you for carrying the tradition of the American theater from the street to the classroom to the farthest reaches of our civic culture. I also want to acknowledge Willie King, who is a longtime partner in lifting up the cultural production of this great mecca we call Harlem. And so many of you who are indigenous to this community who I have not yet met at this time. It happens to be not only the 75th anniversary of this organization, as well as the 75th anniversary of the American Negro Theater, a theater repertory that you had the opportunity to learn something about at the Schomburg Center in its original home in the basement of the 135th Street New York Public Library. As many of you probably noted in the panel text accompanying the exhibition, it was meant to be a theater company for and about Black people. It was meant to be a place for using our creative expression in a way that would move people to not only say something greater than their individual stories, but also to find creative ways to both remember the past and to chart a future. And among the many lights who came out of the American Negro Theater, and among the many people who use their art to help to transform our society, I would be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about Harry Belafonte's role in that place. Not least of which because he went on to, as he said, be an artist who was first an activist, but because he carried the tradition forward of what the American Negro Theater was really all about. And that is that what it did for him as a 17-year-old, walking in there after he received, as he will tell you even to this day, bless his heart, 2 tickets from a lady he'd done some light cleaning for, who was expecting as a teenager to be paid in greenbacks. And instead, she said, why don't you go check out this theater at the Harlem Library? So begrudgingly, that was his compensation. He took it forward and found himself literally transformed by the experience. How can we not think about the life that he led subsequent to that, as a matinee idol of the 1940s and 50s, as a movie star, as one of the first Black people to have a variety show on national television, and as someone who literally helped to fund the civil rights movement through a relationship and a partnership with Martin Luther King. He is one of Harlem's native sons. And so you can't think about theater, you can't think about the relationship of art to social transformation without rooting it in the stories of people like Harry Belafonte. Because it was the work that you carry forward now that made him who he is today. To build the legacy that he built that, by any measure, helped to make the world a better place. And so I am always grateful to be able to tell a story because I have had, over the past 4.5 years, a chance to listen to it many times from him. And that is a great joy and a great honor and privilege. I also think it's important in moments like this to reflect on the role of the arts in relationship to society, because Harry Belafonte, as a 17-year-old, probably isn't much more different than so many 17-year-olds growing up in Harlem and in Chicago and Philadelphia and Jackson, Mississippi and Birmingham and Palestine and so many places around the world for whom they've not gotten tickets to the theater, have not had a chance to experience that expression of art, not been exposed to the way that human motion and mobility and the use of the voice can indeed move people. I think the Black Lives Matter movement itself is a theater of sorts, a way in which activists perform the necessity for change in their communities. And I suspect that in so many of the places that you will occupy, young people are challenging you to reimagine the very productions that you supervise and are caretakers of. It's also an interesting moment that The Wiz was just performed live on national television just last night. And so much of the conversation on, yes, Black Twitter. So when Dr. Van was just I was going to tease him, said, turn off your cell phones. Man, you cannot turn off your cell phones anymore. You can silence them. You must silence, not turn off, because this is another avenue for communication, a technology for speaking in ways to connect communities. In the same way that the salon cultures have passed to the mimeograph. I remarked to someone, if you look in the archives of the Schomburg Center, if you look at Ella Baker's papers, who lived just across the street and in the 1940s helped to organize NAACP branches across the South, but just 10 years before that was teaching history lessons to Jacob Lawrence across the street, who was a 13-year-old newcomer to the Harlem community, taking art classes at the YMCA, taking history classes at the Schomburg from Ella Baker, who then would go on to share her wisdom and her spirit through the NAACP, later SCLC, and of course, SNCC, where she is known today as the godmother of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, lived across the street. And so for someone like that, she used mimeograph machines to disseminate the messages. And so in our papers that are archived at the Schomburg Center, you can see the threads, the trails, in the same way that those tweets tell another kind of story about connected community. I'll just finish by saying it is also our 90th anniversary. This year of 2015 represents the 90th anniversary of the Schomburg Center's founding collection, when an Afro-Puerto Rican bibliophile, a newcomer to New York City at 17, what a strange year that keeps coming up, but 17 years old, migrates from Puerto Rico, lands in New York City, is upset about Spanish colonialism in Cuba and Puerto Rico, joins a band of brothers, both African American and of Caribbean descent. The collection of Los Dos Antillas, an activist organization, are at the Schomburg Center to tell this story to new generations. But he also had a deep and abiding, passionate commitment to history telling. He had a deep and abiding commitment to finding what he said the evidence is of Black people's contributions to the world. And so he began to buy books by and about Black folks, and those books grew to something like 5,000 books and another 5,000 other items. And that was the collection that came to the Schomburg Center, or I'm sorry, to the New York Public Library's Harlem branch in 1925. And I'll end with this because, as you can tell, I have woven together this relationship of art and society and culture and politics. So what might seem just a sleepy library across the street with ivy growing on the side of the building was itself a civil rights project. Because the deal that purchased Arturo Alfonso Schomburg's collection was a deal brokered by James Weldon Johnson. I'm sure many of you, especially in college campuses, have sung Lift Every Voice and Sing, and the annual rite of passage of Black History Month. So one of the authors of that song is Brother J. Rosamond Johnson, also a theater producer. James Weldon Johnson, as well as George Edmund Haynes. Johnson was at the NAACP at the time. Haynes was the head of the New York Urban League. It was they who went to the Carnegie Corporation and said, we need a grant to be able to buy this man's collection so that it can live in the public library, so that others will be inspired by the past, that others will be able to learn from the past, that others might be able to create new paths to be history makers themselves. And so thank you very much for spending time in this community today. Thank you so much for lifting up the legacy of those who have spent a lot of time across the street trying to share the cultural riches of the Black community of Harlem and the world. Thank you.
Thank you for those inspiring words, Dr. Muhammad.